Good evening. How you doing? I tell you, it's all crazy here tonight. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, sorry about that. My name is Lee Love, and this is Photo Mentor TV. We're here every Friday night at 9 p.m. Eastern and 6 p.m. Pacific. And of course, if you're in other parts of the world, that would be 0200 Universal Coordinated Time or Greenwich Mean Time. Anyway, weird night already. I don't know. This technology stuff, I'm sure it's never going to catch on. I'm in a weird mood tonight. I don't know why. It's just kind of odd. And I think I need a cup of coffee or something. Anyway, so I can't get the Facebook stream going for some reason. I don't know what happened. I think I upgraded my software and I think something changed. Who knows? But anyway, so hopefully you're watching us on Facebook or maybe you're watching us on the replay, which is fine. That's great. We just love to have you here anyway. Like I said, I'm here every Friday night. And the reason for doing this, I'm here. The stream is usually available on Facebook or YouTube. And you can get to either of those by going to Facebook, normally, facebook.photomentor.tv, or you can go to youtube.photomentor.tv, and either one of those will take you directly to the channel or the page so you can watch the show. So anyway, apologize for the problems tonight. It's annoying, believe me, just never ends. Tonight's topic is something a little different. It's called Learning to See as an Artist, Understanding the Visual Language of Photography. And I've got a couple of comments about that. We're going to do that later on in the show. We're going to take some questions first, and then we'll cover that. But I've got some things to tell you about that. If this is your first time here, let me tell you a little bit about what this is all about and why I do this. The purpose is really to educate, encourage, and mentor mainly new photographers. Of course, any photographers are welcome. But what happens is over the last year, I noticed that a lot of poor new photographers were just not getting the help they wanted. They'd go into these groups and people would either demean them or, make fun of them or whatever, or not answer their questions. And it was just very, very frustrating for me. Being a commercial photographer for almost 30 years, I saw so much bad information that was repeated. And so I just wanted to reach out and help some people get started, help them grow, maybe gain some confidence in their photography, and achieve whatever goals that you guys have set for yourselves. It could be, you may just want to be a better iPhone photographer or travel photographer, or just do better family portraits, or that's fine. Or maybe you've started, doing some photos for some friends and family, and other people have seen them and really liked them and asked you how much it would cost to have you photograph their family. And so you're thinking about doing this as a business. So I generally cover, the art aspects of photography, the technical aspects, and then also the business component. So any of those things, you're welcome to ask questions about any of that stuff. I'm happy to do my best to try and answer them. If I don't know the answer, I'll let you know, and I can find out, or we'll, I'll just tell you I don't know. So I don't, don't ask me like newborn photography. I can tell you how to light newborns, but I can tell you I'm not very good at understanding how to photograph them. So that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. If you like what I'm doing here, I really would appreciate your support. Send $1 million to, oh, wait a minute, no, sorry. But I really would appreciate it if you would just like the Facebook page, and the YouTube channel. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you don't mind. But the other thing is really to share this information, share the video, share the Facebook page or the YouTube channel with other people that you think would be helpful, that it would be helpful to. I would really appreciate that. That would be terrific. So we got a couple of announcements tonight, and before we get started into the question and answer, one of them is I'm really, really excited about telling you about. It's a young lady who I've known for about 7 or 8 years. And one reason I'm so excited and proud of her is, and this has nothing to do with really me, but she hired me about 7 years ago to help set up her studio. She was just getting into lighting, and she wanted me to come over, and she set up a studio in her basement and asked me to come over and teach her a little bit about lighting and set up her lights for her and, give her some instruction. And that was great. I love doing that. I do that all the time, that kind of stuff. Well, what's just happened today, or I guess a couple days ago, was that she was won won the international print competition in the animal category for Professional Photographers of America. Now, this is a big deal. The PPA does not just give out awards or, this kind of thing in first place, especially for just anything. There's a lot of competition, a lot of excellent photographers, professional photographers that have been doing this their whole lives that compete in this. And so this is really, really fantastic that Marianne won this award. And so I'm extremely proud of her. She's in our Facebook group. If you're in the Photo Mentor TV Facebook group, I'd appreciate if you'd congratulate her. And anyway, my hat's off to her. She's a wonderful person. Her husband's fantastic. And she's just become a really great photographer. And I couldn't be more proud of her. So, Marianne, hey, way to go, girl. That's fantastic. Congratulations. So that's the first thing for tonight. The other thing I wanted to tell you about, and I mentioned this last week, but I'll tell you again, is I am next Friday, there will not be a show. Okay. Instead, what I'm doing is on another platform. It's not going to be on Facebook. You're going to have to go. I'll give you instructions on this. I'm going to be doing a free workshop on Lightroom. Now, let me tell you where this came from. What happened was I started talking to a number of photographers, and I made a post asking people what was the number one struggle that they had as a new photographer. And a lot of different things I saw were pretty common. I expected them, exposure, sharpness, things like that. But then I'd say the number fourth problem people had was with editing. And so I thought, well, gosh, I certainly know a lot about editing, and I've been working with Photoshop and Lightroom for many, 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 many years. And so I decided to put together this workshop and help you guys out and give you a kind of a jump start on 2021 on editing. So what we're going to be doing, I'm going to be covering a number of different topics. I'm going to be covering, some basic navigation stuff, of course. Really, one of the questions people I saw asked, they really want to know how to make their images just kind of pop. And so I'm going to go over some editing techniques to be able to do that. I think a lot of people would want to know how to add a watermark, although I'm not a big fan of watermarks, but that's a whole nother issue. And just a lot of time-saving tips and things and organization of your images that I've developed over the years. In fact, I got a call today from one of my clients in panic. He thought he had lost all his images, and he couldn't get he was getting the exclamation point or mark on his system, and it couldn't find his images, and he thought he had lost like 11,000 images. So anyway, so if you're interested in that, I'd love to have you join me. Again, it's free. I normally would, like this gentleman that called me today, I would normally be charging him anywhere from, probably $250 an hour to help him fix his system. But I'm going to do this for free because I really want to help you guys out. I want to see you get a good start. It's interactive. It's live. And so you can ask any questions that you want. I'll do my best to answer them. So here's the deal. So you want to go to, So you want to go to photomentoracademy.com/Lightroom. And that's how you register. And what will happen is you'll get a confirmation email. And then on Friday morning, I believe, you will get an email with the link. Once we figure out what the link's going to be, you'll get a link, an email with a link that you can get to, and you can have access to the workshop. Now, The other thing that I'm doing is because I had, some people can't make 9 o'clock on Friday evening. I understand that they'll watch the replay, and I don't really want to leave anybody out. I want to try and get this in the hands of as many people as possible and help them. So I've decided I was going to do just a replay on Saturday, but I think what I'm going to do instead is, because I probably was dropped on my head as a youth and I don't know any better, and so I'm going to do it again. I'm going to repeat it on Saturday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. So the next day, that's January 30th, I will be doing this again. So we'll do a whole nother one. It'll be live as well, so you can ask questions on Saturday the 30th at 2 p.m. Eastern. So when you go to the website, again, when you go to the Photo Mentor Academy website /Lightroom, you'll see where you can, it doesn't matter, you can check which day you want, the Friday or the Saturday. You're going to get a link to both of them. You can obviously come back if you catch the Friday one and you want to go back again and catch the Saturday one, no problem. There will be a link in your email that you can do that. I'd love to have you join me. And I think there is a limited number of people I can let into this thing, because I can't answer questions, to 500 people. So jump in there. The slots are filling up pretty quick, but jump in there and get yourself a spot, and I'd love to have you join me. So anyway, that's what's going on the workshop. Okay, so let's see here. What else? The other thing is, the group. So we also have, we've had this a while, but I really haven't been promoting it because I kind of want to keep it small, so to speak. But there's also a photo mentor group that you can jump into. You've got to go in. Again, you've got to fill out a couple, just 2 or 3 questions. Photomentor.tv/join, and there'll be a place for you to enter some information, like, how long you've been shooting, and I think what kind of camera you have. That's pretty much about it. Your name and your Facebook, what the link to your Facebook page is. The reason I'm doing this is because YouTube does not give me the ability to gather this information. Although there's questions there, it's not the same thing, and you can't you can't I can't store that information. So when to help you, I need that information, like what kind of camera you have, that type of thing. So anyway, if you don't mind, I appreciate it. Just go to photomentor.tv/join, fill out the simple questionnaire, then go to the page, the group, which is if you search for groups for Photo Mentor TV, you'll find it. And anyway, that will give you access. It'll ask you if you've filled out the form, or if you've joined, and say yes or not, yes or no. The other thing I should mention is I've also, for those of you that are mentally deranged or really insomniacs, I'm also taking and doing a podcast. Now, the podcast is a repeat of the show tonight, for example, but audio only. So if you're really bored and you just, or, like I said, mentally unbalanced and you can't get enough of this nonsense, then you can also go to podcast.photomentor.tv, podcast.photomentor.tv, and that'll take you to the podcast page. And so if you want to download that and listen, that'd be great. So anyway, like I said, nonsense. Okay, one more announcement, I think, and then we'll kind of get into the questions. The other one is, those of you who don't know, the first Friday of the month, I do photo reviews. So what happens is that you can submit your photos. They are anonymous. In other words, they're not anonymous to me, of course, but I don't use your name or anything like that. And the reason I do that is because I want to encourage new photographers to submit their work. And I don't want to embarrass anybody. I'm not gonna do anything to embarrass you, but I'd rather not use your name. That way you can submit anything you want, and we can just kind of look at it on the merit without knowing the person's name. The other thing is, I didn't put this on here, but it's important that I know how long you've been shooting. So be sure and put that in there so I know if you've been, brand new, just got a camera for Christmas, or you've been shooting for 10 years, that would be helpful. I do not look at the pictures and the images, whether I like them or not. I may make a comment about them, but they're reviewed on 3 criteria: composition, the technical merit, and then, of course, the subject or the story, how well that conveys and communicates that. So, and that way they're all looked at on the same even scale, no matter how long you've been shooting or what kind of camera you have or anything like that. You can submit up to 3 images a month. And if you want instructions on how to do this, go ahead and send an email to help@photomentor.tv. And if you'd put in the subject line review, I'd appreciate it. That'll filter out some of the other emails I get. So help@photomentor.tv, the subject review, and I will give you instructions on how to submit those photos. So I think that's about it for announcements. I apologize for all that, but a lot going on, as you guys can see. Let me see. I think that's pretty much it. Let's see here. Yeah, I know. I don't know what's going on, Patrick. So Patrick's saying that for some reason the stupid Facebook page is goofing up on me tonight. It's he's saying it's still grayed out. I apologize for that. So I'm glad you guys found me over here. And so anyway, and hey Sue, good to see you. So anyway, Sue's and congratulations to Marianne. Yep. So anyway, thanks guys. I appreciate you guys joining. If you have any questions, we'll try and handle those first. Here, Sue asked a question about the Lightrooms. What she says is the Lightroom seminar free or paid? Never used Adobe before, but I can't edit too well, so it's worth checking out. Yes, it's free. And it'll be, here's a question nobody really asked. It'll be about an hour, but I can go longer if you guys have questions. I'm not worried about the time. It's really just a matter of boring you to death. But so it'll be about an hour, and it is free, no cost whatsoever. Just want to, like I said, I just really want to get you guys up and going, and kind of help you get a start. I was talking to somebody else, and I thought for 2021 we've had a kind of a tough year. It'd be nice to guys get started on a good footing with some editing questions and tools and things like that. So anyway, okay, let's see what else we got. So the other thing is, so let's tackle some of your questions tonight. Oh, again, let me remind you that you can put your questions in the Facebook comments, and I can bring them up, as you can see. Tonight's topic is going to be learning to see as an artist. Now, here's the caveat on them. I'm going to get to that in a minute, but here's the problem. I realized as I started putting the material together that this is a involved topic. It's really going to take more, unfortunately, than one session. So I'll go as long as I can on the information I've put together. But I think I'm probably going to have to pick up with a part 2 on this section and cover it in more detail, because there's a lot to it, and understanding the language that art uses and the human brain uses to interpret an image. But anyway, it'll make sense. So I'll go over that in a future episode, but I am going to cover as much as I can tonight without going till midnight. So anyway. All right, let's get to a couple of questions here, and then we'll get started. So let's see what we got. So Edith asked a question, and the question is, let's see if I can bring it up here. Okay. So Edith asked, I accidentally deleted a picture I took yesterday with my Canon Rebel T7. Does anyone know how to recover deleted images? Yes. So there's a couple of ways you can do it. Sometimes the cards come with software on them. Of course, the first thing we do is format it, so we don't usually save that. But one of the applications that I recommend, I've got a number of them I've used, and I think this one's pretty good. It's called Disk Drill. and the company is cleverfiles.com. It runs on both Mac and PC, and it's one of the best ones I've seen in recovering files. If the card is readable, meaning if you just deleted something, you're fine. You'll definitely be able to get that information back. If the card is defective or broken where it doesn't even show up, then no software is probably going to make much difference as far as that's concerned. But this will definitely recover those files. Now keep in mind that the way this works is when you delete a file off your hard drive or even off of a memory card, it doesn't actually delete the file. It just removes the name and the directory. So what's going to happen is this thing is going to go through and it's going to recover all kinds of files. You're going to see files on there that maybe could be a year old if you haven't filled up the SD card before. So it's going to recover a whole bunch of files, but you can also do it by date. So if you know the date of the file, then you can tell it you only want to look for certain kinds of files. But anyway, Disk Drill is the tool. Cleverfiles.com is the location, the URL where you can get the stuff, and I think it'd probably work for you. So give it a try. And there's a free trial, so you can start trying it to see if it's going to work. And then if you want to recover more images, then it will let you do that. You can get the paid version. But definitely a good investment if you're a photographer. So we have all done this before, believe me. And then, of course, what happens as soon as you do that, right? You just go, oh, I cannot. Immediately, as soon as you hit that button, you just knew you screwed up. And it's a sick feeling. It's awful. So anyway, all right, let's see what else we got here. So Jenna asked, what website other than Amazon do you trust to order Nikon lenses with fast, cheap shipping? Okay, let me give you a little history or inside baseball, Jenna, on how all this works. So maybe you know this, maybe you don't. But first of all, the price for Nikon, Canon, Sony, all these products are going to be exactly the same. So the reason is the manufacturer sets this up if it's with an authorized reseller to make sure they can provide support for the product. So it doesn't matter if you buy it from Amazon or Best Buy or your local camera shop, which is my recommendation, but the price is going to be the same. So it's really at that point an issue of, even with tax, it's going to be the same because they're going to charge you tax. So it's really an issue of building a relationship, number one, and number two, delivery. How fast can you get the product and you really need it. So anyway, excuse me. You also want to make sure you're dealing with an authorized reseller, because what can happen sometimes, especially on Amazon and especially on eBay, it'll say it's a new lens, but it could be gray market. What that means is that the lens was shipped over from another country, obviously, Europe. Maybe it was from an authorized dealer or whatever. But when that happens, there's no warranty, a U.S. warranty on that product. So you may save $100, maybe $150, not a lot, by buying a gray market product, but it also means there's no warranty. So there's a problem with that lens at any point, and it's in the warranty period, you're just kind of stuck. Now with Nikon lenses, they have a 5-year warranty, so that's a pretty good deal for $100, because I can tell you any repair you're going to need done on a lens is definitely going to be more than $100. So anyway, all right, so that's the deal on that. So it doesn't really matter where you get it, but I would suggest that you try and build a relationship with your local reseller, because then if you have a problem or you have questions, they can certainly help you with that. Okay. Oh, wait a minute. Sorry, wrong one. Amy asked, what's your opinion of the Sigma 100 to 500 on the Nikon D5600? It's a great lens. The Sigma, there's two versions of that lens. There's what they call a contemporary version and a sport version. I've shot with both of them. They are really nice lenses. There's a couple of good things about them. Number one, 600 millimeters on your camera is going to be 600 times 1.5 is going to be a little bit of a crop factor, so you get a little more than 600. It's not a heavy lens, but it's a big lens. I mean, it's not heavy compared to the stuff I'm used to shooting, 400 2.8 or 600 millimeter f4. Those things are monsters, and you just can't handhold those. This you could handhold if you had to, but you want to use a monopod with it at a minimum, or a tripod with a gimbal if possible. The other thing you should look at, though, while you're at it, there's two other choices. One is the Tamron 150 to 600, and that's called the G2 series, is their latest version. But the other one that I recommend you look at is also the Nikon. Nikon has a 200 to 500. It's not quite as long, but it's a fixed 5.6, where these are variable from 5.6 to 6.3. But the point is that Nikon is really, really sharp. It's just amazing, and it's not a very expensive lens, and relatively speaking, but it is extremely sharp. I'm always impressed when I see it. So that's one that you should consider looking at as well, either the Sigma or the Nikon. So good lenses. If you're doing wildlife kind of stuff, you'll definitely want to do that. Okay, so Joy asks, I'm considering a better zoom lens for my Canon T7 than the one that came with the kit. What do I think of the Tamron 18 to 400? The Tamron 18 to 400 is a pretty good lens. It kind of broke the mold when it came out, because up to that point, you could go 18 to 300 in one lens, but you couldn't go beyond that. To go to 400, you kind of had to go to a whole nother lens, like a 100 to 400 or something like that. So when they came out with the 18 to 400, that was a pretty big deal. It's not a bad lens. It's reasonably priced, I think. I think normally it's around $649. Every once in a while, you'll get a little bit of a sale on it, but it's about $649. And so if you're looking for one lens to carry around, you don't want to change lenses. So when you get the kit lens, you get the 18 to 55, and then you get the 70 to 300, or sometimes the 55 to 200, depending on the kit. And so, my motto is, no matter what lens you have on, it's always the wrong one, because, it looks great with the 18 to 55, and then you turn it and all of a sudden you need, a longer lens. So having the 18 to 400 is nice, because it gives you one lens to do everything. It's not a bad lens. I would take a look at it if you're interested in that. So anyway, Tamron has, I believe, a 6-year warranty, if I'm not mistaken. So it's pretty good warranty on the Tamron lenses. Okay, so Tamara asks, do most of you shoot with presets like portrait, sport, etc., or do you shoot on manual and adjust everything yourself? This is a really good question, and one that kind of drives me nuts, frankly, because if you were to, I can imagine, if you posted this in a group, I can tell you exactly the answer you're going to get. And that's going to be 75% to go, oh, you got to shoot on manual. Got to, manual. It's got to be manual. You don't want to shoot on auto. And personally, I think that's a bunch of crap. Okay, I'll be honest with you. It just doesn't make sense. So, and here's why I say that. And nothing wrong with shooting on manual. There are definitely a place and a time to shoot on manual. But number one, I'm assuming you're a new photographer. Okay, so as a new photographer, you want some wins, you want some successes, you want to get some confidence, you want to have some keepers, as we call it, some images that you're proud of. If you're shooting on manual, you're so busy messing with the camera that you miss a lot of great photos. And here's the way with manual works. So with manual, you got the camera, you got it all set up, you got a perfect picture. If you move this much and the sun or something, or the light changes a little bit, all of a sudden the picture is going to be overexposed or underexposed, because the camera's not making any decisions. It's locked. Okay. Well, if you use one of these other modes, then the camera's going to make some choices and help you. It's going to make a decision. Oh, I need to raise the ISO, or I need to raise the exposure, or lower the exposure, whatever. So let the camera do some of the work for you. My preferred mode is aperture priority, and frankly, every professional photographer that I know shoots on aperture priority. Now, that doesn't mean we don't shoot on manual. There are times, like I said, where I do shoot. If I'm in the studio, the light's not changing, I'm using strobes, I'm going to be shooting on manual. There are times when I'm using strobes outside, I shoot on manual. So it's not like, I'm not saying do not ever shoot on manual, but if you're just getting started, use one of the camera modes that the camera manufacturer provided. So aperture priority is my preferred one, but the what most people don't realize is the sport mode and the little portrait mode. The woman on the Nikon, it's a little woman with a hat on, and then on the sport mode, it's a running man there. So what they don't understand is those modes are pretty much just like shooting on manual in a way. What happens is when you put it in the sport mode, it tells the camera, oh, okay, shutter is my priority. I really want to make sure I freeze the action. So it's going to use the fastest shutter speed it can possibly use and still get a correct exposure. So it's really doing some of the work for you, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's really just like putting the camera in a way on shutter priority and making that adjustment. It's going to do that. When you use the portrait mode or the little woman with the hat, it does the opposite. It does aperture priority. So it's going to use the widest aperture it can to get a correct exposure. So either one of those are going to be good. And the argument about shooting on manual, I know you weren't asking about this, Tamara, is the problem is they say that it's going to teach you the exposure triangle. It's not, because if you shoot on any of these other modes, if you shoot on aperture priority, you still have to know what's going on. If the picture's underexposed or blurred, you still need to bump up the ISO so that the shutter speed goes up. It's exactly the same thing on manual, except you're letting the camera make some of the decisions or a few of the decisions for you. So anyway, that's the deal with that. I won't go into too much because I could spend a lot of time on that. I've already gone way over. I love sports, but the lighting is killing me. Any suggestions on lenses and settings? That's where those were shot on my Nikon D5300, 3500. So sports is one of the hardest subjects to photograph, especially basketball. These gyms are dark. It's difficult. You've got people moving them really fast, low light, and so your shutter speed has to really be up there. So here's the rule of thumb in shooting sports or really any kind of handheld. You want to shoot at twice the shutter speed. You want the shutter speed to be twice the focal length. Let me explain what I mean by that because it's confusing. Let's say you're shooting with a 50 millimeter lens and your handheld. Then you want your shutter speed to be on around 1/25th. That will give you a sharp picture handheld. If you're shooting with a 200 millimeter lens, you want to be shooting at 400, 500, 6/40th of a second to get a sharp picture. And here's how it works. If you think about it and if you aimed a laser at your hand, you could have a little bit of movement, and that movement's going to be very minimal. You're not going to see much there at all. But if this was a 30 feet away, any movement's going to show up as a foot. And it's the same thing. The longer the lens, the more it's susceptible to vibration or movement. So that's why you have to use a faster shutter speed. So that's the problem. So the other thing is just crank up the ISO. I know a lot of people don't like to shoot high ISO, but here's my motto and my belief is that people will accept noisy pictures, but they won't accept blurry pictures. There's things you can do if there's grain or noise in the picture, but there's nothing you can do if it's out of focus or blurry. So if you have to go up to 1600, 3200, 6400, whatever the number may be of ISO to get a sharp picture, then do it. Because otherwise you're just going to have blurry pictures and they're going to be no good whatsoever. Okay, is there anything we can do to lose inhibition during a photo shoot and be more relaxed? What do you recommend? Well, first of all, I would never suggest alcohol or any kind of medication or anything like that. What I recommend is that you want to make a connection with the client, with the person you're photographing. Get to know them, talk to them ahead of time. But during the shoot, talk to them, ask them about themselves, get them talking about themselves, find out what they do for a living, how are they going to use the photos, et cetera, et cetera. Build a relationship. And people, number one, like to talk about themselves, and so they generally will, and it also makes them feel comfortable, but it also lets you know something about that person, and that, I think, will make them relax, which will then make you more relaxed. So, also, keep in mind, this is not brain surgery, okay? I know people think they'll shoot 200 pictures. They think I got to be killer 200 pictures. You don't need 200 keepers. It's never going to happen. You need probably 50, 20, 10 maybe. No one needs 100 images, maybe a wedding, but if you're not going to need 100 portrait images for a headshot for a website. They're only going to need a couple. So it's not you have to have every picture has to be a winner. So you just want to get a handful of images that you can use, provide to the client. So don't get all stressed out about it. Have fun with it. And remember, the more you do it, the more comfortable you'll get with it. So anyway, I think that's the last question. Okay. Let's get into this other thing because we're running out of time here. I didn't realize this was going to take as much time here. So, let's see if any questions. Apologize again for Facebook not working right tonight. Okay. So the subject for tonight is learning to see as an artist. And if you look at the, here's a quote by Ernest Haas, who's a well-known photographer. It says, there is only you and the camera. The limitations in your photography are in yourself. For what we see is what we are. And what he means by this, I interpret it, is that, and Ansel Adams said something similar. He said there's two people in every photograph, the person you're photographing and the photographer, because your life experiences are going to be part of the photograph. You can't help it. It's just the way it is. So there's no limitations except your own limitations. It's not equipment. It's not anything else. So that's what you need to focus on, is learning about yourself and how to see the world. That's really what it comes down to, is learning to see the world through your eyes. Now, I don't want to go off on a tangent here, but here's the deal. Any well-known celebrity or photographer, doesn't matter celebrity or not, but well-known, experienced photographer gets hired for one reason and one reason only, mainly. And that is they're being hired for the way they see. They're not being hired for the equipment they own. They're not being hired for anything else. They're saying, we love the way you did these. We love the way you see the world. We want you to take that vision and do it for us, for my work. And here's what we're thinking. And so that's where you want to get to as a photographer. You want to get to and when you get to that point, if you're doing this as a living, it's not about price anymore. Nobody cares about the price. They want you. They want to hire you. Here's an analogy. Music. Okay. There are bands, right? And there are original bands and there are cover bands. Pick one. I don't know. Rolling Stones. Let's pick one. Okay. And then there are people that do Rolling Stone covers songs. Maybe just as good. Some of them are just amazing, or any other band. I know we've all heard cover bands that are like, wow, these guys are fantastic. But guess what? They don't, the group that gets notoriety and fame and gets hired is the original group. Why? Because it was their song. They wrote it, their vision. Okay. They performed it. The other group may be technically just as good, but they're not the original. And it's the same thing with photography. You want to be an original. You want to get hired for your eyes, for your vision, and the way you see the world and the way you deliver that in a photograph. So copying somebody else's work is never going to get you anywhere. It's okay to copy somebody for practice and to dissect what they're doing and to learn how it's done, but you never want to be a cover band photographer. Okay, you want to be an original. So anyway, sorry about that. All right, so let's go back to this. So the other thing that I struggle with when I talk to a lot of photographers is they think they're a photocopy machine. In other words, they look at the photos are your interpretation. They're not exact replicas. There's even a quote by Ansel Adams said something to the effect that the negative is the score and the print is the performance. And what he meant by that was the capturing of the image is only half of it. It's your interpretation and the how you process it that makes it your image. So when the editing part is important, not because you're fixing something that you got wrong, because you're bringing the image to life. You're taking it, whether you're toning it or whatever, cropping it, you're doing something so it becomes your vision and how you see the world. The other thing to remember is you're unique. Okay, each of us are unique. We could go somewhere, you and I, and with the exact same equipment, side by side taking the same picture. And I guarantee what's going to happen. They're going to be two totally different photos because we see differently. We look at things differently. We frame things differently. Our backgrounds are different. And that all plays into your work. So don't try and copy something. Don't copy the image or the scene in front of you. Interpret it. You want to bring those experiences to work for you. You want to use those. You want to use your background. How you see the world will affect what decisions you make. And also, every decision is an interpretation. Well, what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that when you select a lens, that's your interpretation. Maybe I like wide angle lenses. Maybe you like telephoto lenses. Maybe you crop tighter. Maybe I shoot wide. The point is, all the ISO, the aperture, every setting that I change on a camera is my interpretation of how I see that image and how I interpret that image. So that's good. That's what you want. You want to use that interpretation to bring your vision to life. That's what an artist does. That's what makes a difference between a photocopier and an artist, is your interpretation. All right. So I hope that makes sense. So let's see. So the next one is, all right. So the other thing is, I call this active scene. This is something that I teach a lot of photographers. And active scene is actually learning how to look at the world through your own eyes. In other words, you don't even need a camera. I'm always taking pictures. When I'm driving, I'm looking around, I'm walking in the neighborhood, I'm always taking pictures in my head. I'm looking, I'm studying, I'm watching, I'm looking, oh, look how that is. Look how that, I never noticed that before. Oh, well, look where that rock is. Oh, look at that, whatever it may be, you have to learn to be an active seer. It's kind of an out-of-body or a professional observer kind of thing, I call it. I don't know how to describe it, but other than that, but you're outside looking in. You what happens is we're so used to being looking at the world and trying to to ignore it in a way. I mean, we just kind of go. Let's face it. We drive. We go to work. We go whatever we do. We're not even remember how to get there. It's almost automatic. Well, we do that a lot in our lives on a lot of things. Well, as a photographer, you can't do that. You need to do the opposite. You need to learn to be an observer, a professional observer. You want to look, examine, watch people, be a people watcher. And I'm going to get into lighting and stuff like that where it really comes in. But just start to look and actively see and take pictures with your head, with your mind. So pretend you have a camera and you can look and see things differently and not the way you've always seen them, because what will happen is you'll just take pictures like everybody else if you do. Okay. The other thing is become a student of people. I love photographing people. I think they're the most interesting subjects. And so watch them, study them, look how they stand, walk, move, sit. And the reason you want to do this is because that will help you in posing. It'll help you. So, wow, look how that person's doing that. Wow, they cross their legs that way. And then what happens? So what I'll do sometimes is I will actually, I will have some people I watch them when I'm talking to them before the shoot, and I will notice how they stand. If they, before we're doing anything, they'll kind of sit there and they're kind of relaxed or whatever. And then I'll memorize that and I'll ask them to repeat it when we're doing the shoot, because it looked comfortable to them. It's a natural pose for them. So but you have to be observant. You have to watch that and be aware of that. The other thing is situational awareness. Now, this is a very common term in self-defense. If you are involved in self-defense at all, are you taking any courses in that? What they teach you is to be aware of your surroundings, be aware of the time, be aware of people. It's sort of the same thing as a photographer. You kind of want to be aware. If you want to all of a sudden step back and watch what's going on. Look at the time of day, look at the shadows, we'll look at the people, look at the cars, whatever it may be. Look at your surroundings and be hyper sensitive to what's going on. And that will teach you to be a better photographer. That's the way you see as an artist, is by looking and observing. I mean, look, how many times have you seen a photo of something and said, wow, look at that. I never saw it that way. I've been by this same place 100 times and I never, ever looked at that or saw that picture. That's because of situational awareness, or being observant, professional observer, and therefore watching and looking at what's going on and being able to see something that nobody else can see. Okay. So the next one is to become a student of, now this is my favorite one, of course, because I love lighting. I'm obsessed with lighting. It's a whole nother deal. I could spend a whole hour on this, but it's all about the light. Photography is all about lighting. Without lighting, there is no photography. Okay. And we seem to forget that. People are like, oh, I'm a natural light photographer. Well, that's fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not trying to put that down. But what I'm saying is, even with natural light, you have to be an observer. You have to learn light. You can't just go, oh, okay, we're going to be at 4 o'clock because that's golden hour. There's something else going on there. The light during the year changes, okay? You need to be aware of that. You need to know how that works and how it looks. So the thing to do is start watching it at different times of day, your own backyard, front yard, whatever. Just look, sit out there with, and some headphones or something on, and just watch. And watch the light and look how it moves, and look at the shadow. Look at where the shadow falls. Is it high? Is it low? What will happen is you'll start to become a student of light, and you'll start to observe a few things. Like, for example, do you realize that if you're photographing, I'll use a wall. The light at 12 noon may be the light on the wall may look completely flat. But as that sun comes up or goes down and comes at an angle, all of a sudden you start to see the texture of the wall, which you might never notice before. So that is what I'm talking about. Learning to see how light works and how it affects an object is critically important, because that's what's going to teach you how to see like an artist. Let's turn this off there. So, okay. The other thing is, and we did this last week, I took magazine covers and a couple of books, and I broke them down, and we analyzed them, how the lighting was done on those. And I'm actually going to expand on that whole series. I'm working on some things that are going to make that even more interesting for you, where I'm going to be able to actually duplicate the lighting and show you more accurately how these scenes are done. But look at I'll tell you one thing about me is I'm just I can hardly watch or enjoy a TV show or a movie because I'm so busy looking at either the background. I want to watch what's going on in the background and the styling of the scene and how they communicate that message of that scene, or I'm looking at the lighting. And here's a little trick. Watch your favorite TV show. Watch the close-up shot and look and take a snapshot in your head of the lighting. Then when they go to a wide shot, look at the lighting again, and you'll see it's completely different, because they can't put lights in close. But sometimes what you'll notice is the lighting's more dramatic sometimes when it's a tight shot than it is when it's a wide shot. So they'll change the lighting from scene to scene. So these kind of things drive me nuts, but that's what I do for fun. So let me give you an example of what I'm talking about here. Okay, let's look at it. Here are two objects. We'll call this a cue ball and an 8-ball. And they are lit exactly the same with the same lighting. But what you'll notice is the cue ball, the white ball on the right, what makes it give its depth or perception, depth perception or space, 3D space, right? What gives it that shape? Because we're photographing a 3D world, but we're represented in a 2D perspective, okay, as a photograph. Well, what gives it shape is shadow, right? Same light, different colored object, but the same object side by side. And the only thing that gives the white object shape or dimension is the shadow. But look at the black object, the 8-ball. Same size. I know it doesn't look like it. I'm going to show you another one in a minute. But the only thing that gives it shape is the highlights, what we call specular highlights. So there's a great example of how to examine lighting and look at lighting in the real world. And then that's what you want to be able to duplicate or simulate using available light or natural light or strobes or incandescent light, however you want to do it. But learning this kind of stuff will help you become a better artist, I promise. Now here, let me show you this. Here's the exact same objects against a gray background, so you can now see what they look like. And as you can see, they're the same size, same lighting, but they're what looks differently about them is the only way that the lighting falls, and the fact that one is got a specular highlight on it and one is using shadow to define its shape. So this is what I mean about learning to be a professional observer and examine what's going on and look in the world and be observant of these kinds of things in the real world, and then figure out how to duplicate it in your photography. All right. Only got a few more of these. I know we're running a little late tonight. The other thing is, this is an interesting statistic. Do you realize that the average person spends 17 seconds looking at a photograph? Now, we've all looked, there's thousands of photographs, millions of photographs online, right? And so it doesn't take long before you look at it and you're either taken by it or you just comment on it or you don't. And it usually takes even less time to identify the subject. So it may take 17 seconds for you to scan the object or the photo, but you probably know if it's a car or a person or whatever, even in a shorter amount of time. But the question is, how long does it take you to understand the photograph? In other words, what is the artist trying to say? Is there something going on? I'm scanning the photo. What am I supposed to be looking at here? And this is where the visual language comes into play. Because if you don't know how to use the language, then you can't convey to the viewer what you're trying to say. So they may be able to look at the image and see it quickly. They may be able to identify even quicker what the object is, but do they understand what you're trying to say as an artist? So the first thing you want to do, and there's actually more steps in this. I kind of broke this down to 3 different steps. But the first step to understanding a photograph or an object or artwork is really to look. I mean, I say this, it's kind of obvious, right? Yeah, of course I'm going to look at it. It's not Braille. But the thing is, are you really looking? So are you glancing? It's, as I said before, are you kind of going back to the issue of where you're just kind of passively looking, or are you really active looking? Are you really examining that photo or that scene you're trying to photograph and look at every single thing? Here's a trick that I teach new photographers, and that is, don't worry about what's in the middle. The middle of the frame will probably take care of itself. But look in the 4 corners. So look at the up, down, bottom, and look right before you push the shutter. And you may see something that's either you want to include or ignore. So you may go, oh, if I move in this much, it gets rid of that. Or if I move 6 inches or this left or right, all of a sudden it's a much better image. So you want to look at that frame and decide what to include and what not to include. So anyway, so that's what I call looking and being able to observe and be aware of what's in that frame. The second thing is to analyze. So when you look at a photo, the next thing I tend to do is analyze the photo. I look at it for details, shapes, backgrounds. I'm like trying to figure out, okay, is it level, for example? Is it is there something sticking out of the person's head? What's going on in the background? Is it a great photo? Do I think it's a great photo or an average photo? Well, that has to do with whether they've used the language, the visual language, whether they've used the term, these shapes or details or lines or to be able to communicate what they want me to see as a viewer. One of the mistakes I see a lot of people make is they will, and I know I've taken some people don't agree with me, but that's okay. It's rare that they do agree, actually. But what happens is they'll take a picture. I see all these pictures of people in fields. I don't know why. There's like couples and they're out standing in the middle of this field, and they got this kind of a wide shot. But the field doesn't really. It's like it's just a field. It could be anywhere. I don't understand the need for. They're like, oh, people like that. Well, all it does to me is it distracts me because now I'm looking around. I'm looking left, right. What is there? Something I'm supposed to be seeing? It's a picture of a family. I want to see the family. I don't want to see this field. The field doesn't help add any information. It doesn't, again, everything in that frame has to be purposeful. You want to make sure that that everything in there has something for a reason in there. Photography is about eliminating, not adding. All right, let's see what Jessica says. She says, let me see what Jessica's question is. We'll switch there. Hang on, Jessica. We'll get to you. So Jessica wants to know, probably a strange question. Well, you asked the right guy then. But if photography is an art and subjective, how can other photographers tell you that it's wrong and that's how you saw it? That's an excellent, excellent question. Perfect question. Thank you very much for asking that. So there's a couple things going on. First of all, you got to remember that photography or art, mainly photography, because that's what we're talking about, is a combination of art and science, right? There's science and exposure, making sure their pictures be clear and focus, those kinds of things. Those are the technology part of it. The art part of it, though, is interpretation. Now, what I'm trying to get across tonight, and I'm probably not doing a very good job, is there's a set of language, tools, composition, color, shape, lines, and I'm going to go over more of these in a future show because we're going to run out of time tonight. But all of these have something to do with communication. So in other words, let me give you an example. And I'm not an English major. Believe me, I barely could, as you can tell by speaking, my wife tells me English is my second language, even though it's my only language. But anyway, the point is, if we didn't know the rules of grammar, we wouldn't be able to communicate, right? Now, does that mean that Stephen, some writer is a better writer than another because they use a different language, or not language, but they use a different prose, or they put the words in different order? No, they're just different. But they use this. I mean, a comma is a comma, right? There's still tools and language and rules or guidelines, probably better, to help you communicate with another person. Writing and I'm sure music's the same way. But writing and photography are the same thing. There's a set of guidelines to be able to communicate. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to jump ahead here to one of the photo. And I'm going to show you this one because I think this might help answer what the question you have. It's the last slide. But okay, so look at this. Did you know that color has a psychology behind it? That we react as humans to different colors. Red sends kind of a danger, is kind of a warning to us subconsciously. Orange is energy. Yellow is happiness. Blue is trust. If you notice banks, look at banks. The bank logo are generally square, or they use square shapes, not round shapes, because square shapes denote trust, and structure. And their logos a lot of times are blue. And that's why, because we react to that way. Purple is luxury and black is mystery. And I don't know, white's not. I had white on here. I don't know what I did. White is a health. Anyway, the point is that all of these colors communicate to us, just like composition does. In other words, when you compose a picture, yes, aesthetically, someone may like it or not like it, but if you don't use those guidelines, then people won't know how to interpret the photo. So you can shoot it however you want, and you can say, this is my art, And I don't care if you like it or not. Perfectly. You can make it completely black with a white dot in the middle and say, this is the city of New York. You can do whatever you want. But if you want me to, as a viewer, an observer, to understand what it is you're trying to tell me, you have to use these guidelines, these rules, this language, understand this language so that the average person or most people can understand what you're trying to say. Again, back to language. If I were talking Pig Latin and you didn't know Pig Latin, then it would just be gibberish. But if you understood the rules of Pig Latin and how it works, you go, oh, okay, I can understand them just fine. It's the same thing with photography. Same thing with art. That's why so many of us and so many people that are teaching photography will take you back to the masters that originally were painters, because they figured this out. They figured out rule of thirds. Rule of thirds was not something that came out in the 70s. This has been done for centuries. Why? Because the human brain reacts to it a certain way. It understands it and interprets it a certain way. Here's another example. An object, this object, well, here, let's use this background, okay? The objects behind me are smaller than I am, right? So what happens? Your brain naturally interprets that as being further away. The objects behind me are out of focus, okay? So what happens? The brain interprets that as being distance. Oh, that's further, but yet the distance is, I can touch this right here. Okay, it's not very far at all. It's only arm's length away. But the blur effect causes the brain to interpret as distance. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. It's a language. It's tools to be able to, and so that you convey to a person that's viewing your image what you're trying to tell them. I hope that makes sense. Does that make sense? Yeah, yes. You ask a strange question, you got a strange answer. What can I say? But that's really what it's all about. Let me see if I got. So we got look. Let me go to a couple more of these here real quick, and then we're going to be done. So the other one is, oh, that's not it. Wrong slide. Sorry about that. Let's go back to here. Okay. So the second thing is analyze. Again, details, shapes. I talked about that. And then the last one is to interpret. So this is where it comes in, where you're talking about, okay, you can do whatever you want, and you can make the picture anything you want, and you can make it out of focus, and you can use whatever language, visual language that you want, but will people be able to interpret it? Will they be able to tell what you're trying to tell them, or understand what you're trying to tell, or draw some kind of conclusion about the image? And if they can't, then I guess the question is, you have to ask yourself is the image successful or not? What makes an image successful? And I think it's what makes most images successful. And you can certainly, again, break the rules. There's no perfect answer here. But what makes an image successful is that you understand the language, the rules, rule thirds, whatever, composition. That's just one of them. There's color. That was the only one I talked on. There's shapes. There's lines. I'm going to go over a whole bunch of them in the future episodes. But when you learn how to use these tools, then you're able to convey what it is you want your audience to understand. And that's my big thing. So you got to understand. So I come from an advertising background, marketing background, right? People hire me to do ad campaigns. So I can't just do whatever I want. I've got to be able to, I'm trying to find out what problem they're trying to solve. I'm trying to find out what their product's all about and who their target audience is. And then I have to translate that into something visual using these guidelines and tools and using this language. If I don't use this language, then the product is not successful. The ad campaign's not successful because people won't understand it. I mean, look, how many of us have seen beautiful ads on television for, women's perfume or things like that nowadays? I'll look at my wife, and I know they're not targeted at me and my age group, but I'll look and I'll go, I don't have no idea what that was about. So visually it was good, but it didn't communicate. And so therefore it wasn't effective. And that's what I'm trying to say. So yes, there is interpretation, and then there is intent. So your intent can be whatever you want it, and whether it's conveyed or interpreted by your audience has to do with how well you understand this language we're talking about, this visual language, and how well you're able to apply it. I hope that makes sense, because that's all I've got. And if it doesn't, then ask me again, and I'll come up with a better answer. But that's really what it's all about, is being able to use these tools, this language, to convey the message that you want to get across, whatever that message may be. So anyway, I think that's probably it for tonight. I think I've probably taken up way too much time. Again, remember, we've got the sign up for the Lightroom workshop that is coming up that'll be next Friday. And then if you miss it, there's another one coming up on Saturday. You can catch that one. The one on Friday is at 9 p.m. It will not be here. You have to go to photomentoracademy.com/Lightroom, sign up for it, and you'll get a link to where it's going to be. And you can sign up for either the Friday or the Saturday session. The Saturday session is at 2 o'clock on Saturday Eastern time. So anyway, I hope this has been helpful. I know it's a tough subject. As I realized when I got into it, I was like, uh-oh, I might have picked the wrong topic to go into, because it's really can be complicated. But I love trying to make complicated things not complicated. So hopefully you got a little bit of this, but if not, maybe we'll go over it again. But I would love to. This is a real challenge in being able to translate this using language to something that you interpret or understand correctly. So anyway, thanks very much. I enjoyed it as usual. Appreciate you spending some time with me tonight. Sorry we went over. And sorry for the Facebook problem. I'll post the video up there later on tonight. See you guys later.